Have you ever stared at a totally blank Node.js file and just thought, okay, how do I turn this into a real working web app? If that sounds familiar, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on Express.js, the framework that makes building on Node.js not just faster, but actually a lot of fun.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with the big why, like why does Express even exist? Then we're going to get our hands dirty and spin up a super simple server. After that, we'll dive into how to direct traffic around your app, we'll uncover the secret sauce called middleware, and then we'll put all those pieces together to see how a real application starts to take shape.
So let's get right to the heart of the problem that Express solves. You see, Node.js on its own is incredibly powerful. It gives you all the raw pieces you need to build a web server. But it's kind of like being handed a high-performance engine, a steering wheel, and 4 tires, and someone saying, all right, go build a car. I mean, sure, you could do it, but you'd spend a ton of time just figuring out how to build the frame.
And that is exactly where Express.js comes into the picture. Think of it as the pre-built, high-quality chassis for your Node.js engine. It doesn't build the entire car for you. You still get to pick the color and the features, but it gives you a solid, reliable structure to build on top of, so you can focus on what actually matters, your app's features.
So what is it really? Well, at its core, Express is what we call a minimal and flexible framework. And what that means is it gives you a solid set of tools for all the common stuff, like handling web traffic and managing requests, but it doesn't force you into a rigid structure. It really hits that sweet spot between providing help and giving you freedom.
Okay, enough talk. Let's actually build something. Seriously, you're about to see just how ridiculously fast you can go from absolutely nothing to a running web server. It's a great, quick win.
It all happens right from your command line. First, you just use npm to install the Express package. Easy enough. Then you create a single JavaScript file. We'll just call ours app.get. And finally, you run that file using Node. And that's it. 3 steps, and you have a web server ready to go. And here's the little bit of code that makes the magic happen. First, we just import Express and create our app. Now, this app.get line is the most important part. It's basically us telling the server, hey, when you get a GET request that comes in for the /ping path, I want you to run this little function. And inside that function, all we do is send back the word pong. Finally, app.listen kicks everything off and tells our server to start listening for requests on port 8080. And here's the proof. If you pop open another terminal and use a tool like curl to hit that address, or honestly, even just open it in your web browser, you'll see it. Pong! That's it! Our server is alive and kicking, and it's responding to requests. How cool is that? Okay, so we've created one single route, /ping. But a real application needs to handle a ton of different URLs and different types of requests, right? This is where routing comes in. Think of it as the traffic control system for your entire application. And Express makes routing incredibly simple and intuitive. It basically maps the standard HTTP methods you already know directly to functions. So if a browser sends a GET request to ask for some data, you use app.get. If a user is submitting a new form, which is usually a POST request, you use app.post. It's this really clean one-to-one relationship that just makes sense.
And you've got options, which is great. You can be super specific and say, I only want to handle GET requests for this path, and you'd use app.get. But you can also use app.all to say, you know what, I don't care what kind of request it is, GET, POST, whatever. If it comes to this path, I want to catch it. This is super useful for things like checking if a user is logged in, where you want to run that same piece of code for every single interaction.
All right, now we are getting to what I think is the most powerful, most important feature in all of Express. It's called middleware. If routing is the traffic control system that directs cars to the right street, then middleware is the series of checkpoints and tool booths that every single car has to pass through along the way. The best way to think about it is like an assembly line. A request comes in at one end and it starts moving down the line. Each middleware function is a station on that assembly line. At each station, you can inspect the request, maybe you add something to it, or you could even decide to reject it and pull it off the line completely. And if everything looks good, you just pass it along to the next station.
So what can these stations on our assembly line actually do? Well, just about anything. They can execute any code you want, like logging information about the request. They can make changes, like adding the current user's data to the request object so other parts of your app can use it. They can end the whole process right there. For example, if a user isn't authorized. And most importantly, they can call a special function next to pass the request on to the next middleware in the chain. And here's what that looks like in real code.
By using app.use, we're telling Express, hey, I want you to run this function for every single request that comes into my server, no matter what. In this case, we're just logging a simple message. But that next call at the end, that is absolutely crucial. Without it, the requests get stuck at this station and the assembly line grinds to a halt. The request would never move on.
Okay, so let's put these two big ideas together. Routing tells us where a request needs to go. Middleware tells us what should happen to that request on its journey. And when you combine these two simple but powerful concepts, you literally have everything you need to start building a full-featured web application.
So what kind of things can you build with this? Well, the list is huge, but some common examples are easily serving up static files like your CSS, your JavaScript, your images. You can generate dynamic HTML pages with template engines, and you can build a really robust centralized system for handling any errors that pop up.
Here's a great example. Out of the box, your Express server is locked down. It won't just serve files from your computer. You have to tell it which files are safe to share, and this built-in middleware, Express.static, does exactly that. With this one single line, you're telling Express anything inside the public folder is fair game. Make it available to the web.
But what about when you want to send back something more dynamic than just a static file? That's where template engines come in. Now, a quick note, this example uses Jade, which is a bit older. Today, you'd probably use its successor called Pug, but the idea is exactly the same. Instead of res.send, you use res.render. This tells Express to grab a template file, maybe inject some data into it, and then send the final rendered HTML to the user.
Look, things are going to go wrong in your app. It's just a fact of programming. So Express gives you a special kind of middleware just for handling errors. You can always spot it because it has 4 arguments instead of 3. That first one, error, is the error object itself. This thing acts like a universal safety net. No matter where an error happens in your code, it gets caught right here, which lets you log it properly and send a nice user-friendly error page instead of a crash.
So, there you have it. In just a few minutes, we've gone from the confusion of a blank page to the clarity of a well-structured application. You now get the 2 core pillars of Express: routing to direct traffic and middleware to process it. These are the superpowers. You have the framework, you have the router, you have the tools. The only question left is, what are you going to build next?